Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm Tom the Som. I'm here with Jared, and this week we're talking beer. I know all of you have been looking at our spring wine series. We're having fun with that, but we took a little break. I had an awesome invite to a homebrew party last weekend, so there's some pictures on some of the social media pages. If you got the email from us, you'll see some of the pictures of it. Just a lot of fun. It was really, really awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And I was very, very happy to have the invite from you guys.
I'm glad you came.
Yeah,
That was a good time.
that was a good time. So we talked a little bit with Kim about barley wine and a little bit about IPAs and hops, different types of hops, how that works with everything. And now Jared had a couple of darker beers, and we want to talk a little bit about that. And then he also had a mead, which, for those of you who know, as a sommelier, I hooked a lot of people by telling them, hey, we're doing beer, but we're going to do barley wine, and we're going to do mead, which is honey wine.
Yep.
So I'm getting everybody kind of reeled in with that, and just explaining it. And it's just, we had a lot of fun, a lot of education coming out of Kim. Kim was just going on, and he was just, I was learning stuff, one after the other, so that was pretty awesome. And now we're going to talk a little bit. We talked a little bit about hops and stuff like that, but I want to start talking about dark beers, because dark beers, a lot of people are intimidated and afraid of dark beer. They think they're bitter, or they think they're this or that, and that's just not the case.
They usually think they're over body too. There doesn't have to be a lot of body in a dark beer.
Exactly. I mean, think about a black and tan, right? The black sits on top of the tan.
Exactly.
It's all about the body weight, the alcohol, basically, of the wine. That makes it heavier, lighter. And a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I don't drink a Guinness. It's too heavy." But I like a Guinness. It's nice, light, and refreshing sometimes if I want something like that. So you had a black ale. In fact, you had
The
Himalayan Black Ale.
Yes, sir.
And it was nice. ABV was reasonable at like 4%. It was like a session, like a session beer. Easy to drink. Nice flavors. I tried them all at the party. So I had to start cutting my portions down towards the end because I was getting. But that was one of the ones I think I drank a whole.
So I tried to emulate my favorite beer back in Michigan, Widowmaker. It's just super light, super crispy, and darker than hell. Yeah, I tried to emulate that as best I could, and I think it came out pretty well. So you're not getting a lot of boldness out of it. Like, it's not super heavy on the palate. It's very easy to drink. I mean, you can drink them all day at 4%. Anything is going to kick your ass.
That's what I like. I mean, sometimes you get these beers that are 8, 9, 10%. You drink 3 of them, and all of a sudden you're cross-eyed.
Yeah.
You're trying to talk to people. It's like someone sneaks up behind you with a baseball bat, smacks you in the back of the head. I've actually, as a bartender, I actually watched the customer one time drinking away, fine. Also, it looked like his eyes kind of bulged for a second, and then the next thing he said was, I was like, oh boy, I just watched somebody hit the wall, But yeah, you're right. I mean, 4 or 5%, you can drink them all day. They're nice, flavorful, but like you said, crisp and refreshing. The one it reminded me of the German Dunkels. Where you get the Dunkels, where you're thinking, oh, it's going to be. It's going to be heavy, it's going to be bitey, but it's not. It's light, it's drinkable, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's going for.
So,
the malt profile is just black malts and chocolate malts, which is variations of roast, basically. So I think I used a 2% grain bill on both of those, so 2% of the black, 2% of the...
Explain grain bill.
Okay, so grain bill, you do certain percentages of things. So if you want like a wheat ale, I would go 55% two-row, 45% wheat. Somewhere around there, you can mix it up to get what profiles you're looking for. Then hops makes the world of difference after that. Your basic bill could do anything. So the porter that I did like 1.5% of the smoke, like heavy smoke, grain, and that little percentage goes a long way.
Sure.
So the 2% of both of those in the black ale, the black and the chocolate, that's where all the color comes from. And then you get a little bit of flavor, but not anything too heavy.
But that it did have a nice mouthfeel to it, and it was really flavorful. That was the smoked maple bourbon porter breakfast. Portable breakfast, which that was tasty. That was one of those ones where I'm like, maybe I should save the rest of this for the end. I could definitely finish up my day with that. You know, it's just really awesome. So that's our little bit about dark stuff. The next thing I wanted to talk with you about was mead. Now, I hooked everybody with the barley wine, and I hooked them with mead, which is honey wine.
Honey wine, yes.
Tell them a
the
little
nectar
bit
of the gods. That's what the Vikings drank. So I've always been interested. I grew up a nerd, so playing D&D and stuff. I've always gotten into that. So mead. This is actually my first time making mead, but I used to live right next door to a meadery back in Michigan. So
Okay.
I'd go talk to the guy all the time, so I knew how to make it. Never did it. Basically, all you really need is honey, water, and yeast. The honey you warm up a little bit to dissolve into the water, and then you put it into a fermenter, add the yeast, and you've got mead. But I did it a little bit differently. I wanted it fruited, so I took all chemical fruits that were in the fridge. It's like, well, blueberries, tangerine, I'll throw those in. I chopped those up, threw them in when I was heating up the honey to dissolve. Just threw that in and let it all soak for a little bit, and threw it in the fermenter. It did turn out a little sweeter than I was anticipating. I think I did 2 pounds of honey for a gallon of our gallon jug. And, so the more sugar you add, it should get lighter, not lighter, drier, because the yeast has more to eat.
Okay.
So I thought 2 pounds.
That was one of my questions. I was going to say, how do you regulate it? Because I've had meads. I mean, when people think honey, they think it's got to be sweet. But I've had meads that were dry.
Oh, very dry.
And delicious, very unique. You know, just unique flavors to them. Especially when you're adding stuff like fruit in and there's like anything, you can create so many different things from it.
Oh yeah.
When I was first introduced to mead back a while ago, it was sweet, and it was basically all tasted the same. I never tried different variations of it until the last probably 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, that for me, and I know it's been happening longer than that, but 30 years ago when I had my first one, it was supercharged. You know, it was definitely dessert.
I've had some interesting ones. There was a guy that used a guy back in Michigan. He used roots for root beer. He made like a root beer mead, and then I think he used champagne yeast because he carbonated it, which is not usually what you do with mead. And that was phenomenal. Almost root beer because you got the syrupy flavor from the.
That's pretty cool.
The honey, yeah.
That's really
wild.
What's the car doing? You should check that one out. Play around with that. That would be really neat.
After doing it, it's just so easy to make. I mean, I'm not going to not make it. The cost of honey. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Right.
Simple.
I had that effect. Car's doing good. I wash it once a week now.
Worth looking into.
Yeah.
If you use the fermenter, pretty much make any of them. I don't know how to make most of them. Kim would know more.
Yeah, Kim had a pomegranate, a white pomegranate, I think, wine. The white cranberry, white pomegranate. Something unique that I'd never.
He's got a couple that I haven't tried yet.
He had one that he had put away. He said he thought it was too sweet. He put it in the cellar somewhere, and then he found it like a year later and said, "Oh, let's see what this is like." And when you open it up, and it balanced out. He said it was very sweet when he made it, and he wasn't really excited about it. But he said, "I'll just stick it over here." And so he found it over a year later, and it changed. That was way more balanced. I tried that at at the tasting, he had one just sitting there, and he's like, "Oh, I got a white." So it's not on the list, but it was neat. I thought he said pomegranate. But yeah, so that was fun. That was cool. And then he had a Cabernet there that he had made, basically from
that
grapes and shipped in. That was good.
And my mom used to make wine. She did tomato wine, dandelion wine, anything she would grow.
Dandelion wine. My uncle, my grandfather, and my uncles used to make wine out of everything.
Yeah.
I grew up with them making, huckleberry, blueberry, peaches. They had grapes on the property. They'd use grapes, whatever they got their hands on. And dandelion was one of them. But I remember the dandelion wine that I drank was like turpentine. I don't know.
My mouth was bitter, but it was good.
Theirs was very it was sharp, and it was it wasn't almost grappa-esque, where you get that little kind of punch in the nose type thing. But
yeah, very cool process. The whole thing. Beer's relatively easy to make, but it's definitely a much more involved thing. Mead making anyway. But it's all
Mead, you kind of throw it together and let it do its thing, and beer, you're changing. We talked a little bit about it earlier with me and Kim, and he was telling me about adding a little bit less of this, or doing putting the hops in later, or dry hopping it, and all the different ways to make
There's a lot of steps.
a lot of things you can do. So that was cool. He was showing us one of the apps that he used, Grain Farm.
Yep, he's got me on that.
Okay. Is that the one you use for?
Oh yeah. That's what I built. These two. These are my first two homebrews. I brew at the Alameda Brewing Distillery.
Right.
I've done big batches, followed those recipes, but this is my first time doing small batches, building them myself.
Is it easier to do a big batch or a small batch?
It's
Or is it just different
more
process?
work, but I know those steps like the back of my hand because I've been doing it for 4 years now. And the small batch,
He's my favorite.
Kind of
He's the reason I don't like
ropes, it just got into recipe development.
Yeah, the rest
As far
is
as that's
definitely
concerned. These are my first 2
The other
years.
ones you're going through a recipe that you're repeating over and over.
Well, we
Really.
do
But you
change
do
them, but-
new items here
Yeah.
and there. Well, a lot of the stuff you're making, you have your core items that
exactly.
you're used to making consistently, and then you're making. At the brewery, who comes up with the new, the head brewer,
Steph,
or
yeah.
Steph does, and then she'll tell you guys, or does she work with you, or how does that?
Yeah, she kind of works with us, but for the most part, she's top notch. Final
She'll start
say.
creating
Yeah.
the new, because there's a few of them. The Floridays is one of my favorite ones. That you
No,
guys
that's correct.
Yeah, that's my hands down favorite. As soon as it comes available, I try to get my hands on it.
I don't blame you for that. Good, happy IPA.
It is. And I like it because it's got the balance, and it's not over the top, but it's, that's one of my things. You get something that's got a good mouthfeel to it, good balance to it. It's just. I was laughing with Kim about, and I said, "You got how many IPAs on your list here?" He had the smoked habanero, he had the red chili mango lollipop IPA, he had the old red IPA, the post road IPA, the Barada Way IPA, the Hop Hoppin' IPA. I was like, he's got the bases covered on all different styles, and they were all very different, unique, and fun.
Oh yeah.
And that's what it's all about. I like to drink something that's got a little bit of punch to it, hoppiness, but like we talked about, when the ABV is up there in the 8, 9, 10 range, it's like you gotta kind of hit the brakes on that. It doesn't matter what the ABV is on my beer, I drink it at the same pace. You know what I mean? And that can get dangerous. You just don't think about, we're talking, I'm drinking, we're talking, I'm drinking.
Oh yeah.
We used to
Understand that.
get these beers. I was telling Kim, the Elf beers that used to be released around Christmas. There was Bad Elf, Notoriously Bad Elf, Insanely Bad Elf, and they were all different styles and stronger. And until the last one was basically a barley wine. But they were all starting around 7.5%, 8%, and they would go up, and there was like, they released like 4 or 5 different ones a year. And by the time you got to the top one, it was like, put your seatbelt on, because, you know, a couple of those, and you know, you celebrate Christmas early. you are Saint Nick, or you're seeing him or something. So
Think about next year, because my dark ales turned out, the dark beers turned out really well. So I think I'm going to continue making those. But I really want to make an imperial stout. So basically make it, freeze it, scrape off that stuff, and then it heightens the ABV. So I want to get it to like a 13%. And then you'll pour it in like a little 5-ounce glass.
yeah, just a little sipping.
Yeah, exactly. I really want to do that.
Now, between things like imperial stouts and oatmeal stouts, you know, you got your Guinness stout, which is your light, easy drinking stout.
Yeah.
And then you go up to, you know, I consider like an oatmeal stout starting to get some body to it, some punch to it. Alcohol levels going to be up there a little bit. Then you get your Russian imperial stouts and stuff like that. Those things are bombs. I mean, they're big and bold and mighty and huge. A lot of flavors built in them.
That's all grain-bill too. So to thicken up a beer, you can add lactose, you can add oats. They also make malts specifically for that. I believe it's caramel is one of the ones I use. But those add fullness to that beer itself. They'll impart some flavors as well, but mostly you're adding that to get the boldness of grain.
I hope everyone's taking notes out there. I have to go back and take my own notes. I'm learning. Like I said, when I trained, you know, as a sommelier, the focus is wine. But we also I learned about cigars, I learned about beer, I learned about, you know, scotch and spirits and things like that. Learned how to pair food and wine. But the focus was wine. So for me, going back, every time I sit down with somebody who's making it, you know, I'm learning more and more, and I love it. You know, and that's obviously what we're doing here, is getting that out to you guys. So you guys take your notes. I'm going to have to go back and make my own notes after this thing's over. But
You should join us on a Sunday. We usually brew on Sundays.
oh, nice. I definitely should take a trip through that.
Yeah,
that's a
give you
cool
an invite
idea.
for sure.
All right. I'm gonna
Brew
take
is
a look.
fun.
We'll take a little tour through there and show everybody how it's done.
Okay. Yeah, we do that almost every other Sunday at Kim's house. We do a homebrew, and then the next week or two we'll bottle. And
Okay.
So,
I like that.
fun process.
Very cool. All
Definitely
right.
have a
Well,
good time. Cheers.
cheers. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys out there. We'll be back in a little bit. I've got one more interview to do, and then we're going to wrap this one up for this week. But thank you again, Jared.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's it. That easy. That much fun.
Oh, yeah.